Close your eyes for a second and imagine a pile of papery shells, warm from a roaster, the air curling up with a chocolate whisper, not sweet like candy, but toasted and quiet. Tonight, we're taking those husks and turning them into 3 small, slow things. A cup that smells like comfort, a pantry syrup to brighten breakfast, and a tiny hand balm that smells like evening. Make space on your counter. We'll keep everything simple.
Welcome to Earthy Remedy. I'm Fiona. With me is Sumnang. Today's episode is all about cocoa husks, the gentle shells left after chocolate making, and 3 very approachable ways to use them for comfort and low-waste pantry love. The key benefits? Sensory warmth, a small use of resources mindset, and an evening ritual you can repeat without fuss.
I love that. Small rituals that actually fit into a real life. Before we dive in, quick note, we'll offer sourcing tips and safety cues so you can try this tonight with confidence. Let's meet the husk. Picture the cocoa pod journey. Beans are roasted, nibs cracked free, and that brown, papery shell is left behind. The husk isn't chocolate paste or cocoa powder. It's a light, dry material with a toasty, slightly bittersweet aroma. Put it to your nose and you'll get a subtle roasted cocoa note, comforting rather than intense. The texture is papery. When dry, it steeps gently and releases that aroma without the heavy fat or sugar of chocolate.
From a practical perspective, cocoa husks are mostly the fibrous shell and some trace compounds from the bean. Nutrient-wise, they're not a concentrated source of the compounds we usually think of in chocolate, but they do carry a gentle chocolate scent and a light theobromine presence. Theobromine is a mild stimulant related to caffeine. For most people, this is subtle, but for very sensitive people or those avoiding stimulants, it's worth starting with a small sit.
Right, and availability-wise, you'll find husks from roasters and some chocolate makers who sell them as a pie product. They're appealing because they're low waste. Something that might have been composted becomes a sensory ingredient for tea, syrups, even skincare scenting.
Segment 2. Kitchen context and tradition. People have used cacao byproducts in different cultures for warm drinks, flavoring, and as aromatic additions long before the industrial chocolate bar. In some places, a husk infusion is simply a warm, slightly chocolatey cup drunk with breakfast. In other kitchens, husks are steeped into syrups or added to porridges for scent. We're keeping these recipes gentle and food safe. Buy food-grade husks, look for reputable roasters, and discard anything that smells musty or off.
A quick cultural note. Using leftover plant parts is a common thread in many food traditions. It's creative, resourceful, and it smells wonderful, like turning a small waste into a daily little pleasure. We'll also remind listeners to check labels so they aren't getting husks processed with unexpected additives.
Segment 3. Why these 3 rituals? We chose steep, sweeten, and scent because they're complementary and low risk. The husk infusion is great for a gentle chocolate-scented sip or as a spritz base for linens. The syrup turns that aroma into a brightener for porridge, coffee, or a mocktail. And the hand balm is a small, non-invasive way to add comforting scent at the end of the day. Who should be cautious? Infants and people avoiding stimulants. And anyone with known cocoa allergy, topical or internal, should skip or patch test carefully.
All right, let's get practical. Segment 4, the recipes. I'll read the ingredient list slowly so you can jot it down or just listen. The full written recipe will be in the show notes.
Ingredient list. Read slowly. For the husk infusion, single cup. 1 to 2 tablespoons dried cocoa husks, and 300 milliliters, about 1 1/4 cups, water. Optional, a half teaspoon honey or a splash of milk if you want a touch of sweetness. For the pantry syrup, small jar, 1 cup water, 1/3 cup granulated sugar, and 2 tablespoons dried cocoa husks to steep. For the chocolate-scented hand balm, 1 small jar, about 1 ounce. 60 milliliters infused oil. We'll talk about how to make that. And 2 to 3 grams beeswax, about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, depending on how firm you want the balm. If you need an allergy-friendly swap for beeswax, jojoba or fractionated coconut oil are good alternatives, but you'll need a different hardener, like candelilla wax. We'll note that in the show notes.
Equipment needed: a small pot for steeping, a fine sieve or cheesecloth, a heat-proof jar or mason jar for steeping and storage, a small saucepan for syrup, a spoon, and a small heat-proof container for the balm, and a double boiler or a safe warm melt method. Also, a small scale or measuring spoons for the balm ingredients.
Step-by-step instructions. I'll guide you slowly through each recipe so you can follow along if you're making it now. Step 1. Husky cup. Hot steep method. Pour 300 milliliters of water into your small pot and bring to just under a boil. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of cocoa husks. Lower the heat and let it steep at a gentle simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. You'll notice the water take on a soft, warm amber color, and the room fills with that toasted chocolate aroma. After 10 to 15 minutes, remove from heat and strain through your sieve or cheesecloth into a cup. Taste a small sip to gauge how you respond to the mild theobromine note. If you like, add 1/2 teaspoon honey or a splash of milk.
Step 2. Cold steep option. If you prefer a lighter, even more subtle flavor, place 1 to 2 tablespoons husks in 300 milliliters cold water in a jar. Seal and let it steep in the fridge for 30 to 60 minutes, or up to 4 hours for a slightly deeper flavor. Strain before drinking. This makes a lovely chilled spritz base for water or a mocktail.
Step 3. Pantry syrup for brightening. In a small saucepan, combine 1 cup water and 1/3 cup sugar. Stir over medium heat just until the sugar dissolves. Add 2 tablespoons cocoa husks and lower to a very gentle simmer. Let the husks steep in the warm syrup for about 10 minutes off heat, or turn the heat off and let it infuse for 30 minutes for a deeper flavor. Strain into a clean jar, label with the date, and store in the fridge. Use a tablespoon to sweeten porridge, a drizzle on toast, or a splash in coffee. Note, this syrup is dark and can stain, so work over protected surfaces.
Step 4. Infused oil for the balm. Easiest low heat method. Place about a cup of a neutral food-grade oil, fractionated coconut, jojoba, or light olive oil into a clean jar and add enough dried husks to fill but not tightly pack, roughly a generous handful. Set that jar into a warm water bath, a bowl of warm water, and let it sit for 30 to 60 minutes to gently warm and draw fragrance. You can also do a sun jar method. Seal and leave in a sunny windowsill for several days, shaking daily. Strain and you'll have cocoa-scented oil.
Step 5. Making the balm. In a small double boiler or a heat-proof bowl set over simmering water, combine 60 milliliters of your strained infused oil with 2 to 3 grams beeswax. Stir gently until the wax fully melts. Remove from heat, and if you like, add a drop of vitamin E oil as a mild preservative and skin conditioner. Pour into a small jar at a slight angle so the surface cools smoothly. Let cool completely before sealing. Label with date and use within 3 to 6 months, keeping it in a cool, dark place. Always do a patch test on the inner forearm first.
Storage and serving tips. Make small batches so the aroma stays fresh. Syrup keeps in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. The infusion will keep refrigerated for 3 to 5 days if made hot, longer if made cold and strained carefully. Balm should be small batch and checked for any smell changes. If it smells off, discard. Label everything with a date.
Sensory moment. Pause with your cup or your jar in hand. Notice the warmth in your fingers, the steam lifting in soft ribbons, the aroma that's not candy sweet, but warm and grounding. Take a slow breath in. Let that chocolate whisper remind you of small comforts.
Safety and cautions. We want you to enjoy this simply and safely. First, start with a small sip to assess how the mild theobromine affects you. If you are pregnant, nursing, or highly sensitive to stimulants, check with a trusted healthcare provider before adding Husk infusions regularly. For topical use, always do a patch test on the inner forearm and wait 24 hours. If you have a known cocoa allergy, avoid both internal and topical use. Use food-grade husks from reputable sources and discard any that smell moldy or musty. And as noted, these syrups can stain, protect surfaces and clothing.
We'll also remind you not to interpret this as medical advice. These are culinary and sensory practices. If you notice any unusual reaction, stop and seek appropriate care.
This is an invitation to a small, repeatable ritual, not a project. Pick one. Make the Husk cup tonight, or a tiny jar of syrup that lasts a week, or a single tidy balm. Let the act of making be the point. The slow stirring, the straining, the label placed on a jar.
The bottom line is, cocoa husks are a low-waste way to invite a warm, chocolate-scented ritual into your day. They're gentle, sensory, and cheaply satisfying. If you try one thing this week, let it be a single small cup to notice how a tiny habit can change a moment.
We'd love to see your quiet cocoa moments. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss future recipes. And if you make this, a jar of syrup, a cup, or a balm, snap a photo and tag us or send a voice note. Share what you changed, what you loved, even the little mistakes. That's how these rituals get better.
Thanks for making space with us tonight. A small final note. The full written recipe and sourcing links are in the show notes. Take one slow breath, tuck the image of warm husks in your mind, and if you try this, we hope it offers a quiet, small pleasure.
Listen to your body. Trust the earth. Feel the difference.